Hey, what's up, guys? It's your Lost Boy Rufio. Welcome back, and today we're going to be doing story time. Yes, I'm in my uniform. I figured it'd be more fun to share this story while I'm in my uniform. If you guys like it, let me know. If you don't care, it's all good. I don't care. Hopefully, you guys enjoy this story. This is a story I tweeted about a few days ago about saving someone's life all by myself, so I want to share that with you guys. Before we get into that, though, really quickly, this is my very first gameplay of Nuketown. I've never ever played Nuketown. I hopped on today, and it's free for everybody, so I put in search and destroy and it put me in a Nuketown game, and so this is my very first game ever on Nuketown, so I want to share that with you. Also, it's not that exciting, but it's alright. Then later I play a game with Blivy and search and destroy. I think I get like 11 kills. It's pretty fun. And then Blivy did pretty well too. So hopefully you guys enjoy the gameplay, but really this is about story time and me sharing some of my crazy stories that happened on the ambulance. So for those of you who do not know, I'm a paramedic. Here's my little patch there. I'm a paramedic in Utah, and I work at a fire station. I run on the ambulances. We take the medical calls, and I love it. It's absolutely amazing job, and I love sharing with you guys some of the crazy calls that we get. So this call that we had was so I was sitting at the fire station. My partner had called out, so I had a different partner, and he was not a paramedic. Usually we have two paramedics running on the ambulance at this fire station, but this guy that filled in the shift was not a paramedic. He was just a regular EMT, so he didn't have all the paramedic skills and knowledge that we have, and so anyways, we get this call for an unconscious patient. So we start going, we start hauling ass lights and sirens to this call. It turned out to be at an Instacare, where a 45-year-old man, he's about 45, 50 years old, 275 pounds, pretty big guy. He showed up at the Instacare just not feeling well, and he started going downhill fast. His wife was with him. His wife didn't speak any English, and so we couldn't get any information from her. And so this guy's going downhill fast. He's having irregular respirations. He's not getting a good saturation level for oxygen. He's not getting enough oxygen. And he's got altered mental status. And so I talked to the nurse. The nurse has no information. All she has is just the name and date of birth. That's all she has. She has no history, no meds, no allergies. I have no idea about this patient. So I'm like, all right, we need to get to this patient to the hospital quickly, where the doctors and nurses can actually figure out what's going on and take care of him and save his life. So I'm like, well, I also want another paramedic in the back with me, because I don't have anyone to assist me. And I'm going to be all by myself with a really big man that's dying on me right in front of me. And so I'm like, well, I can either do two things. I can either call for another ambulance, or I can just haul ass to the hospital. Our closest ambulance is about at least 15 to 20 miles away, and so they're at the south end of the valley. And so I'm like, well, it'll take them about 10 to 15 minutes to get here. And so I'm like, let's just go to the hospital. Let's just get him going, and let's drive fast. And so I told my partner, I'm like, if you want to help me now before we get him in the ambulance. And I was like, well, I don't feel comfortable with my IV skills. I'm like, oh, great. So basically I've got to do everything on my own. So I'm like, well, let's just get going. Let's not waste any time. Let's get going to the hospital. So we throw him in the back of the ambulance. We start going lights and sirens. I'm sitting in the back of the ambulance trying to maintain this guy's airway. We have him on oxygen, high flow oxygen, trying to make sure that he's got enough air or enough oxygen going into his body. And so, like, all right, so he's altered mental status. He's unconscious. He's not getting enough oxygen. I'm like, what? I start thinking, what can I do to make sure to change this? And so I'm like, well, let's check a blood sugar. So I get a blood sugar back all by myself while I'm trying to maintain his airway. I check the blood sugar. His blood sugar comes back at 25. Normal blood sugar range is about like 80 to 120-ish. And so, 80 to 100 is usually what we see for normal people. This guy's blood sugar is at 25. And so I'm like, oh, great. So that's our problem right there. I found the problem. I need to correct the problem. In order to do that, we have to give a medication called dextrose, which is what we call D50. And so I'm like, okay, I've got this guy's airway somewhat managed. I'm going to try and do an IV while maintaining his airway, because the brain needs basically two things. You need oxygen and sugar. And right now, he's not getting both. He's not getting enough oxygen. His sugar's dropping fast. And so I'm sitting there maintaining his airway, giving him oxygen. So that problem is somewhat corrected. Next problem we got to correct is the sugar. So I need to get IV access. So I sit there and try and do an IV in the back of the ambulance on the way to the hospital, going lights and sirens on the freeway, bouncing up and down. It was insane. It was just crazy. And so finally I got the IV access in the first attempt. I didn't fail. I got it. I got an 18 gauge in his what we call the AC right here. So I got a good IV, and so I hooked it up to our fluids there, and I gave him the dextrose. So I had to unhook the medication, get it all set up, and then gave him the dextrose, the D50, and I pushed that right as we were pulling him to the hospital, about 2 minutes out. Gave him the D50, And as soon as we started pulling him out of the ambulance, he started breathing a lot more normally. I'm like, oh gosh, thank you. So he's finally starting to come to a little bit. We get him into the hospital. The nurses, the doctors are there waiting for us. They start doing their full assessment, and the guy starts to come to. He did puke a little bit, and then after that, he starts talking. And he comes back to normal, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that was amazing. And so the doctor came up to me and she's like, you did an amazing job. You did something that usually would take at least 2 or 3 firefighters to do in the back of the ambulance. You know, somebody to maintain airway, somebody to do a patient, patient care, and then somebody to document or to set up the medications. You know, usually they have one person for each of those jobs. And I did all of that in the back of the ambulance, going lights and sirens all by myself. And so she kind of congratulated me, and I felt so amazing to see this guy, come to. And I basically did save his life because the brain, it takes, if it doesn't have sugar for about 4 to 6 minutes, the brain, doesn't survive. You need oxygen and sugar. It takes about 4 to 6 minutes. So that time was very, very important. We didn't waste any time on scene. We didn't waste any time getting to the hospital. I gave the sugar within the amount of time, and we're able to save that guy's life. It was absolutely amazing and incredible. So by the time we left, his sugar was about 106, and he was completely alert and talking to me. He was sitting there crying, thanking me for saving his life. His family was so happy. His family was just, just crying in tears because they thought that their father or their husband had died, and so it just felt really good to be able to make that difference in somebody's life and to save their life. And to do what I learned. I spent all this time in school, and I was able to put that to good use and to save this guy's life. So I hope you guys enjoyed that story. We had a couple other stories I want to share with you guys pretty quickly. Just some smaller stories. We had a young guy that was, he was about, how old was he? 6 years old, and he had fallen, and so he was climbing up a tree, trying to climb up a tree, went to go and jump and catch a branch. 6 years old, falls down, lands on the back of his head on cement, like the curbing around in the garden. He goes to grab the tree branch, falls, lands on the back of his head, and has a complete depressed skull fracture. And so that was pretty sad. The kid is doing okay. We rushed him to the hospital, and they went straight to the operating room. He had a major bleed in his head, plus they had to fix the skull fracture. So that was pretty rough seeing a kid get injured pretty bad like that. We had a barn fire. I did tweet some pictures out on Twitter. I might show them here if you guys want to see. So we responded as medical for the barn fire. So what it was a calf knocked over a heating lamp, and it got caught on fire through all the straw, the hay, and ended up going up in flames. Fully involved barn fire. I keep saying bonfire. Fully involved fire, and unfortunately the calf didn't make it. The dog got away, and I think there's the rest of the horses and stuff. We were able to rescue them. They were able to get them out of the way, and so we did have the calf that died. That was kind of sad, but other than that, they got the fire out and saved the rest of the property. No humans were injured. And then what else did we have? There was a couple other smaller calls, but yeah, that's about it. I hope you guys enjoyed story time. Please let me know if you have any questions about story time. Feel free to ask in the comments down below, or you can come to the live stream and ask. I love sharing about story time. I love my job. It's been absolutely amazing to be able to share these kind of stories with you guys. So thank you so much for watching. You guys have a wonderful day, and remember, we have a giveaway tomorrow. The Xbox One giveaway is tomorrow on my Twitch live stream, and then tonight we're doing scary games. So come check out the live stream again. Thank you for watching. I love you guys. See you guys later. Bye.
Nice work, Black Ops.
I want to see you lay by the truck. I want to see you lay by the truck again, you faggot.
Reaper, KIA.
Yo, Elmo, turn that Hispanic music off.
Lost boys like me and lost boys like me
Sounds like you're doing fucking dishes over there.
Neverland is home to lost boys like me, and lost boys like me are free.